Welcome one and all to the painting zone. Hello there. As you can see, corpse grinders, although with the custom heads they have become, as you're fully aware if you've been following this project, the mustache grinders. Now, I'm also doing some deeply controversial and experimental camera techniques here, surely never tried before by anyone on YouTube. No autofocus. I know, it's a little bit out there and crazy, but that means you won't have any of this kind of malarkey trying to get it to focus on somebody's face. Hopefully they should all just stay nicely in focus as long as I keep them in about this kind of region. Also means you get a nice close-up view of my fingers as well. So let's just make sure my fingernails are nice and clean. Yeah, they look alright. Cleaner than some people's I've seen on the YouTubes over the years. So, as you can tell from the title, we're going to be working on the flesh. And the wet palette's nice and moist. The paint is nice and moist. The water over here is nice and moist. How about the audience? Are you salivating with readiness? Because I can see the chat there. I've got Graham in there already, as usual. And that's taking up an entire monitor to itself. And we also have Annie of Bad Squiddo in there as well, confirming that moisture is present in the audience, apparently. So that's good to know. Okay, what kind of brush are we going to use here? I think I've got all the prime suspects out in front of me. Don't want to use too fine a brush. Might use this one with a bit of a bend in it. Another controversial move. So it's got a decent point to it, it's just a little bit crooked at the end there. So we're going to use that. I'm going to be using pale flesh for all of them, although they are going to have a variety of skin tones, but that's going to be achieved through various washes rather than a different colour underneath. So in some of the darker skin, this is just going to end up as a bit of a highlight on the raised areas as the washes darken up those crevices, the facial crevices mostly. Let's see. Yes, Annie should be working on Goliaths at the moment, but alas. So you can see that I've already done some work on the trousers, or pants, if you will, if you're of a certain world location. You can see nice and orange. This is just contrast paint over the white, and I think it looks pretty good, so I'm not sure if I'll do anything else with that. We'll see how all the other elements of the miniature come along first. Not only do we have these standard guys from the corpse grinders with Space Wolf heads, we also have some Escher bodies with corpse grinder heads and weapons attached to them. So they've got a bit of flesh to be worked on as well. Not quite as much, I think. Maybe mostly the arms and the foreheads. But more flesh on my corpse grinders than on most, since they are the mustache grinders with their bare, naked heads. So let's shake up this paint. Yes, we do have a live weather report down below if you want to keep your eyes peeled. I'm not sure I'll be updating it during the stream, so if the weather turns, then, hope that wasn't too loud, then you may have to get your update elsewhere. Let's blast some paint onto the wet palette. A big old healthy splodge. So we've got 10 people to work on here. So I'll put them in some kind of sensible position. So I've got space to put the ones that I've already worked on. So it looks like this is the prime spot for focus, somewhere around here. So I'll try and keep them in roughly that domain. So let's immediately start working on some of that flesh. Tender, tender, juicy flesh. So they have exposed back muscles, chest muscles, and arms, as well as the faces. Don't think they've got any exposed leg flesh. This is going to be very pale for the start, but, as I said, we're going to be washing it up real bad or real good, depending how you look at it. So some of them that are going to end up with lighter skin tones will just have a small amount of flesh shade applied to them. And any that are going to have much darker skin, there will be at least one or two, then I think they're mainly going to have Agrax Earthshade in multiple coats. so that it eventually darkens them up but still leaves some highlights because it started off with a very pale base colour. That's my patented flesh painting technique. I don't know if anyone has any better suggestions, but it's quite an easy one. Just doing the same thing over and over again with the washes. So I'm sure I won't be doing all of that on camera. Unless people want to see absolutely every step on camera. I suppose they come here for my sparkling personality more than anything anyway. It would be funny if I followed that up with a full minute of silence. If Andy ever spills a wash, you'll get to see live me running up screaming, yes. Potential violent, psychotic, murderous rampage of a housemate who did warn me not to get any paint on the carpets, so precautions have been taken. There's piles of tissue around the base of the desk, and my lap and the keyboard shelf would take the brunt of any spilt paint as well. Obviously, nothing can be done really as a precaution if I just completely lose my mind and just swipe an open paint pot off the desk halfway across the room. No amount of precautions could prevent that from being a disaster. But you would hope that I can avoid doing that. It's one of those things. If it happens eventually, just going to have to deal with the consequences, no matter how murderous and violently psychotic they may be. They seem to have exposed spines, or maybe like spinal implants. I don't want to zoom in any more than this for painting because there will be times when I move them close to my face and then you just won't be able to see them if I was zoomed in any more than this. I've got my chair on the lowest setting so you can actually see me. Very professional overlay on the video as well. Created by the fine team of crack artists and graphic designers over at Radbat Designs, who incidentally did not design the intro logo for this show. If you hadn't guessed by how shoddy it is, that was all my work. Until something good is created in its stead. Speaking of fancy logos, a Forest of Rem t-shirt sold on Redbubble today. All that merch is selling like pretty warm baked goods, I would say. Okay, onto this guy's face now. I have to decide what colours to do the beards and the hair as well. I can't tell if some of this is hair or if it's baldness on top, so I'm just going to paint it in flesh for now. And then I'll look at some pictures of how it's supposed to be on the Space Wolf heads. And if it turns out that that bit's supposed to all be hair, then I can just paint over it. Some of them are a bit on the bald side. So the particular skin tone that any of them end up with will be a determining factor in what kind of colour hair they have as well. I do need to start planning out these streams further in advance than 8 minutes, because it would attract a larger audience if people knew to save a spot in their busy evenings for this. but word does slowly get around, and they usually start filling up a bit towards the end, these shows, when they're announced a bit hastily at short notice. Because really, people can read their children bedtime stories any night, but they can only watch my live painting streams once a week at the moment. So I think you know where your priority should lie there. But the stream statistics in front of me, so if I ever look up like that, it means that there was just a bit of movement or a big spike in viewership. It doesn't tell me how many dislikes there are. Maybe that's for morale purposes, because it does tell me the number of likes. So they do have gloves on, these Escher models, but they seem to be fingerless. It's always the nightmare when there's items of clothing where you can't tell where it ends and the flesh begins. I've had plenty of models over the years where that's been the case, but it's quite clear on these ones. So I'm glad I decided not to just stick corpse grinder arms straight onto these, because it would have looked a bit too bulky, I think. These just look nice, don't they? I just sliced off the weapons they had before and just applied the corpse grinder weapons into their hands. And they're plastic, so it should form a nice solid bond there as well. The view count is rising slowly but steadily. Okay, on to the next big fella. Ten at once is usually my limit. Any more than that, and I can get it done, but it usually kills my motivation for the next several months. If I, for example, do 20 miniatures at the same time, then it gets to be such a chore and such a relief when it's over that I need some time off painting usually. So 20 is too many. 10 is just a nice amount. Especially if there are other projects on the go as well, which there are. I just finished working on some stuff which I'll show you in a minute if you've not seen it before. Just get some more of this flesh done. I'll show you a couple of finished projects. Evening, Steve. Anyone else working on anything tonight? Anything spicy, juicy, succulent, moist, tender, finger-licking good, delicious? Any of the above? I feel like anything I work on is automatically spicy. Now, will I live to regret sticking this guy's weapon on because it goes right across his body? Maybe, but not yet. So I'm not trying to paint anything behind it at the moment. There is one model in this faction that I haven't completely assembled, and I'll show you why when we get to him. Okay, let's do one of these little guys next. I haven't read the book yet, so I don't know the specifics of what each of the corpse grinder models are called. But I will read it soon. Especially now that I'm into the painting process, so presumably it won't be that long until I'm ready to actually play a game with them. Despite these uncertain times, and unprecedented times, and turbulent times, Graham hasn't painted anything in ages, but I have built and prepared a load for the next session. Steve is working on orc chariots and 6mm ECW infantry. Now, when I see ECW, I just think of wrestling, so you might have to explain what that is. I'm going to assume that's not what it is. I'm sure if I thought about it, I could probably work out what it stands for in the miniature context. English Civil War. There you go. But anytime you abbreviate something with any kind of acronym that also matches up with something else that I've been more exposed to over the years, that's going to be the first thing I think of. For it to be a full-on acronym, does it have to make a new word? Can't remember. And he says, in Tiger King they kept referencing the GW Zoo. Well, I can think of a few Facebook groups that could be considered the GW Zoo. Quite wild. And you don't want to get your face too close to any of the cages because substances will be flung at you. Now, I was praising the Escher models for having a clear dividing line between the skin and the clothing. These guys, not quite so clear. He seems to have a little bit of a sleeve going on there, just on his forearm. I think I've picked it out, or picked out around it correctly. So Necromunda is going to be coming to you very soon on this channel. Games of Necromunda, hopefully. Mr. Remington actually bought some, even though it was kind of the plan for him to be doing that a month ago. Finally got round to it, and he's got some Escher. So you can look forward to him not learning the rules and relying on me to tell him what to do during the games. I think I've just painted this guy's hand when it's actually a glove. Never mind, can always paint over it. I expect I'll get a few dislikes on this video actually, because I did post it in one of the Necromunda Facebook groups. So anyone that just decides they don't like my face for some reason is probably going to dislike it for that reason alone. That means I'm relying on all the usual suspects to demolish the like button, as the kids say. Still don't really understand the whole deal with Facebook, or not Facebook, with YouTube notifications, because I don't use any of them. Because if I want to see what's going on in my subscriptions, then I just open up the subscription tab and have a look. But then again, I'm also not subscribed to 10,000 different channels, so I don't have to pick and choose which ones I actually care about the most. Because if there's a channel where they just spam endlessly with videos that I don't care about at all, I just unsubscribe. I don't just select the bell on all the other channels. I'm sure some people find it beneficial to have notifications, especially for channels like this that do live broadcasts with very little warning occasionally. So this is the guy that's not fully assembled with his little face shield there. So I wouldn't be able to paint his face if that was stuck on. So that's going to be done separately. We've got David in the chat. Steve says some very sad people out there. Yes, some very sad people indeed. Disliking videos. How disgraceful. I've disliked a few videos in my time. Always for the right reasons, though. And I don't really keep track of what the YouTube algorithm suggests. So there have been periods when disliking a video actually helped the creator to get more reach on their video. I don't know if that's the case now. But it did all just count as engagement. So while you're watching the video, if you then interact with things while on the video, for example, the like and dislike button, it was pretty much all the same thing. I'm still not going to open up my videos by telling people to subscribe and like the video, though. Wait till at least 10 minutes in to then tell people how outraged I am that the video only has 4 likes. How many has this one got? Oh, this one actually has 4 right now. Not bad. I don't expect these videos to get a vast number of views or likes anyway. Just a nice motivational tool for me to get painting done. And hopefully boosts a little bit of the community spirit and gets other people to do a bit of painting as well. If I make this a regular time slot, round about this time, the same time every week, then I'm sure the audience will grow organically. So I may well do that. I might start announcing in advance. That's how the big channels do it. And that's how the medium channels do it as well. And wouldn't it be a dream to have a medium-sized YouTube channel? Very few people in the painting or wargaming tabletop community in general achieve medium channel status. I'd consider it a large channel if you're able to make a comfortable living from it. Medium channel if you could just about scrape by on the money you make from it. Or you can get by comfortably with that in addition to maybe someone else in the family bringing in the cash. So it's not always about what quality of life you can get out of it, because some people just don't need that money as much as others. So that's not the only metric to consider. Number of subscribers isn't a huge thing, because I've seen channels with way more subscribers than me that get less views than me. And also the other way around, there are some people with not that many subscribers, but their videos get a lot of views because their audience are very engaged with the content. Yes, it is totally wrong disliking my videos. It should really be a criminal offence, if you ask me. It's a criminal offence within your own soul, so you've got to live with it for the rest of your days. And then, one day, you'll be judged. By a higher power. I saw that GW have announced some new PC and console games, including one for Age of Sigmar, which it claimed to be fast-paced, turn-based, which is usually a bit of a contradiction in terms there. So we'll see how they pull that one off. I don't get too excited about any kind of GW licensed games because 99% of them are complete garbage. You just have to keep your eye out for the nuggets of gold among all that filth. The Necromunda game that's coming out looks pretty good. That's one I've got high hopes for. Looks a bit XCOM-like to me, so if it's anything like that, that would be very exciting. Oh, don't want to launch them. So 3 more to do the flesh on. In fact, before we continue the flesh, I'll just rinse the brush for a second and show you what I finished recently. So, you may have seen me working on the bugs and skulls and spider eggs on the bases. There are the completed custom Dread Fiends for my Kings of War Night Stalker army, and I think they look pretty damn tasty. So I've put gloss varnish onto all the little critters on the bases as well to make them nice and shiny. Green slime everywhere. The bases were done with a textured paint, which is in a gigantic pot, and I can't remember the brand exactly. I'm sure I'll use it again at some point so I can tell you then. But then that was left to dry and then dry brushed with a slightly lighter brown and then a bit of a bone colour on top, just on the very highlights, extreme highlights. And then lots of green slime everywhere. Job done. So I think they look very tasty indeed. And the next step after Necromunda is going to be to do the same thing with this guy who doesn't really fit into the shot. There he is. Shadow Hulk. Heavily customized, converted, built from pieces. Also for the Kings of War Night Stalkers. David says, have you seen that Left 4 Dead new stuff? Yes, I have. I've heard that there's a new Left 4 Dead 2 campaign coming out. And I was a bit hesitant when I heard about it because I saw the map and thought, wait a minute, isn't that just like that survival map from Left 4 Dead 1? That's not very exciting. But if they've actually built a full-on campaign around it, then that makes it much more interesting. I've played a lot of custom Left 4 Dead 2 campaigns over the last few months. Some of the best ones I've played, actually, some of the best user-created content that I've played on Left 4 Dead 2 has been the Resident Evil campaigns that people have made. It's like based on all three of the original Resident Evil games. And they're recreated really faithfully as well. Like, all the puzzles are there. It's obviously just 4 of you, and the enemies are from Left 4 Dead instead of Resident Evil. But they're actually a lot of fun. It's a bit more slow-paced than your typical Left 4 Dead play, because you're solving puzzles more, and collecting things, and finding codes for doors and whatnot. But it also makes it a bit more horror themed, I think, because Left 4 Dead 2 isn't that scary, really. Left 4 Dead 1 was a bit more terrifying, I felt. But the Resident Evil campaigns are a lot of fun, so I'd recommend looking those up in the Steam workshop for Left 4 Dead 2. And there's a lot of other spicy ones, but it'll be nice to see a somewhat official campaign as well, because I still play that game quite a bit. I used to play it a monkey buttload between like 2008 and 12, 13-ish maybe. Left 4 Dead 1 and 2. Played an awful lot. Steve is looking forward to seeing that Shadow Hulk get finished, as am I. It seems like it'll take a really long time, but I don't know. Once I start working on it, it might go by really quick, so it's just one big thing, really. So it might end up being quite a speedy process. We'll see, because I don't have to put an obscene amount of detail into the painting. Because I've said this about the Night Stalkers before, I'm not going to try and like freehand veins and sinew and all kinds of ridiculous detail and wet blending and all that nonsense. I'm just trying to convert a disturbing looking army, do a pretty simple, striking, colourful paint job on them, and then make the bases as creepy as possible. And that's the goal. Not everything has to be painted to the highest of your ability, especially when you're doing multiple full armies. So we'll see exactly how fast I get through it once I've finished with these suckers. But these guys have to take priority because, of course, I've already got about 6 Kings of War armies. So I can't really justify putting a rush on those, especially since I can't quite play Kings of War very much yet. Whereas Necromunda is definitely on the agenda in the very near future. And I don't have any gangs for it yet. So I've got to prioritise these guys and gals. Two to go. Steve is in agreement. Yeah, I've run into the same thing with Dreadball teams. Because I already have about 6 or 7 painted Dreadball teams, I've really struggled to get motivated to paint anymore, because I only play it really a couple of times a year outside of tournaments. And then tournaments before the whole worldwide global pandemic, there was only maybe 2 or 3 tournaments for it a year that I would attend anyway. So how often am I going to use any of those teams? It's not like Kings of War, where in a normal year I could quite conceivably get to at least 1 tournament a month and play probably a practice game each week. So I can justify having a lot of armies because a lot of them are going to be used. Whereas Dreadball and Dead Zone, especially Dreadball where I've already got so many teams, Dead Zone I've got 2 painted factions. So I kind of delayed working on the Forge Fathers for Dead Zone because do I really play it often enough to justify a 3rd faction? And the answer was no, and it's even more so no now. But maybe one day. But in an ideal world, I would be playing Kings of War a lot. I just don't really have much interest in playing on Universal Battle at the moment, because it's just not the same. I like seeing the actual real armies out there on the table, rather than pushing the pixels around instead. I know some people are really into Universal Battle now. They spend a lot of time playing on there, honing their tactics. And if you live in a remote area and don't get a chance to see other humans that often, then I can definitely understand it, to keep your skills up so that when you do get to a real in the flesh event, you're not a complete noob. But if that's the only way to play, then it doesn't really interest me. Okay, on to the last one for the flesh. Dave says, don't forget your Belgians. Well, I do have the Bolt Action 2nd edition rulebook, and I am in Nottingham, which you would think would have more Bolt Action players because it's not that far away from Warlord Games HQ. I'm currently living within striking distance of most of the main wargame companies, at least the ones whose games I play, or have played in the past, most of them. So GW, Mantic and Warlord are all within striking distance of me right now. So I would like to get back into Bolt Action eventually. There was a point where it may have been considered my favourite rule system, but I can't say whether that still stands up because I haven't played 2nd edition yet and they've brought templates in, which I'm not really a fan of in general, because I don't like having to manage how close together your troops are to minimise template contact. I think that's a needless waste of time. spotted a little bit on this guy that I might just go in there with the knife. It's not a mould line, it's a little bit of something that shouldn't be there. So I'm going to try and slice that off and then paint over it. Just a little bit of a lump that's not supposed to be there. And hopefully it's in a little spot that won't get bumped too much, so I won't need to worry about there being primer on it. Just splodge a load of paint over that now. It's not on a corner or anything, so it shouldn't get nudged by anything else. In theory. Okay, face. David has Italians and Brits for bolt action, very nice. And Steve has got Russians, including some of Annie's lovely ladies. Yeah, those are very nice miniatures. And I like to have an army that isn't necessarily unique, but that most people you'll be playing against either won't have played it before or certainly won't own any of the line themselves. It's always nice to have that. So the Belgians, for instance, very unlikely I'm going to come up against anyone that's even played against them, because they're so unpopular, might be a bit of a harsh word, but they're not very widely played. And if you're going for one of the more common factions, then just going for uncommon models can have that same effect as well. Or, failing that, even just doing something like this, like I've done with the corpse grinders, putting different heads on them, making them unique. Just something to make your army stand out visually, other than just the paintwork, which you can obviously still do as well. But if you're trying to stand out with paintwork in historical games, that gets a bit spicy, because people don't take kindly to historical inaccuracy. Okay, there's the flesh. There's a hair on my desk. Outrageous. Rinsing off the old brush. Let's give it a bit of a soaping now as well. Okay, nice clean brush. So, the skin will have dried on the first ones that I did. So, let's do some washes. Which ones have I got on here? We don't need Nuln Oil. We don't really need Contrast Apothecary White. Now, I'm sure I've told us about this before, but look how annoying this is. You can see that it's Nuln Oil, but with the contrast paints, you can't see what it says without taking it out. So if you've got any similar colours sitting in there, be careful. Let's try it with a regular Citadel paint as well, because it would be understandable if it covered these ones because they're quite small, but even then it shows you the top line of the name of it there. You can see Citadel Technical Waystone, which is pretty obvious. Let's try this one. Citadel layer moot, so you can tell that it's going to be moot green. So why is it the contrast paints, they put the name of it so low down that when you put it in the holder, and you would want to buy this specifically for contrast paints because they're so thin, you'd want to not knock them down ever. So I think that's bad planning there. I like this product. Contrast labels, not so much. So if I was a bit braver, I'd be tempted to just peel off the label and move it up to the top so you could actually read it. But they should just be doing that in the factory. It's quite a disgrace if you ask me. So we don't want that. We've got flesh shade here, but I also want a nice spicy bit of Agrax. There's Agrax Earthshade. Is there any left in there? There's a bit. I'm not sure about using that though, because when there's only a teensy bit left, it's going to be all pigmenty and thick and not ideal. So we'll move that to one side. I've got another one in here. There we go. Agrax Earthshade. A nice, fresh pot. Ripe for the plucking. So, a fresh pot. This is when it gets spicy. If something like this flies out my hand, this would be instant carpet ruined. There we go. Broken the seal. Plopped into the Citadel paint holder. So I think we'll start with Reclaimed Flesh Shade. And I'm going to just pick out random ones. And then I'm going to divide them up into the different shades of flesh that I'm doing on them as well, so I don't get them mixed up later on. Some of them I'm just going to have one layer of Reclaimed Flesh Shade. Some of them will have two probably, and that might be it for that. The Agrax Earthshade, some of them may have 3 or 4 coats of that, some maybe even more if I don't think they're quite dark enough yet. So, do we want to dive into that right now though? Or, let's see. I'm going to have a look at the hair and assess the situation first. Some of them don't even have any visible hair, so I guess I could do those. Anyone that has no hair that's showing, so that would be these 4. So I could do the skin on them first, put the shades on them, and these guys I might want to paint the hair first in case it strays onto the flesh, and then I can go around neatening it up, and then I can do the washes after that. So the ones with no hair, I'll do them right now. So let's start with Reclaimed Flesh Shade. Yes, Steve, it is an outrage. So we'll have one of each of them. By that I mean one of the originals and one of the Escher bodies converted. We'll do one of each of those in, actually there's a bit of flesh mist on that one. Let's just paint that quick. Mist the abdominal region with the flesh paint. There we go. So we won't do that one first, obviously. Let's do the wash on the flesh of these two. Reclaimed Flesh Shade. And there may be highlights over this at the end, but this is the next step at least. Doesn't matter if it strays onto other parts, because most of them haven't been painted yet. Although I've just spotted the back of the head, is that supposed to be flesh as well? I'm going to say no, because it's really featureless. It doesn't have any wrinkles in it or anything. So I'm going to say that that's just a bit of helmet there, not flesh. Even if it's supposed to be flesh, I'm not going to do it that way because it just looks like helmet. Okay, now this one. I should do a full video on that outrage of the paint not showing its name when it's in the holder, really, shouldn't I? That'd be some nice clickbait. Me looking outraged, and the title would be something like GW's cruelest mistake, or GW thought they could get away with this. Something really clickbaity. That'd bring in the ratings. That'd show that I'm a real YouTuber. Is there anything greater in the hobby than applying washes? No. Because it's quick and it makes a vast difference to the model immediately. There's no other process in painting other than washes, as far as I'm concerned, that have that effect. Just as soon as you apply them, suddenly it goes from looking like nothing to something. Okay, let's have a bit of agrax on the other two. These two are going to be significantly more tanned humans. So there'll be multiple coats of this potentially. Not starting with the darker flesh tone though, because I want the lighter one for the highlights. And if you've seen the way I paint my trolls for my Kings of War Goblin army, it's the same thing, except there I obviously start with green, and then I use multiple layers of agrax to make them very, very dark green, but you can still see kind of light green highlights left behind because it started off so bright. So I'm going to try to mimic that. I haven't painted a vast amount of darker skinned humans. I did some in my Dead Zone Rebs faction, and in my Bolt Action army I've got the Belgian Congo soldiers. But apart from that, not that many. And is that flesh that I just applied going to be dry enough for this? Yeah. So this lady is going to end up a bit on the darker side as well, eventually. For a few more coats. Trying to think now if I've done any more darker skinned humans. And I think, actually, my Stormcast Eternals, I think I did a couple in there, actually. Because not many of them have exposed flesh. So I think I did at least one or two as part of my Ballista crew, as they have a bit of skin visible. Just try to work in a bit more variety of the skin over the years. So obviously the default in the artwork for most game systems traditionally has been like extremely white. So people tend to just take that as the default usually. Okay, we've got some washes on. Just checking a couple of social media notifications. Nothing too exciting going on there. Okay. Oh, the view count has just shot up a little bit, so that's nice. 6 likes. Not bad. Not bad at all. So, we'll separate these so I remember which ones are which, because I've got some mild colour blindness. So if I leave them all next to each other, I will get them confused and forget which ones are supposed to be getting darker skin than the others. So, we'll put the Caucasian squad over there, and we'll put these here. So we'll do a bit of a 50-50 split on these as well, and then I'll figure out what kind of hair colours I want to go for. Because obviously in Necromunda, I'm pretty sure that they're going to have access to all kinds of weird hair dyes and stuff down there. So I could go for some funky colours. Let's see. David says, do you know if the bell works? I have it on, but it never works. As in, I don't get notified. It should do. If you've got the bell set up for this channel, but you're not being notified, have you tried turning it off and on again? That might work. So, who wants to have paler skin? Let's see. This guy has got a bit of a ginger vibe about him. So, I think we'll give him fairly pale skin. That guy as well. And that guy. So these three can have darker skin. So let's get rid of these washes for the moment. And I'm going to do some hair painting now. So we're almost at 1 hour, but I'm still going to do a little bit more because the view count is slowly rising and I don't want to abandon all that sweet, sweet momentum and viewership. So, what colour hair do you want? He's going to have orange hair because he just looks like that kind of guy. What about these two? I could give them all like really ridiculous rainbow hair colours instead of just snooze fest grey, brown colours. Should I? They've got orange trousers. They're going to have some white clothes, I've decided. So orange and white is going to be a bit of a theme. They're going to have some kind of metallics, obviously, because they've got all this armour on them. And weaponry. Steve says green. Some of them could have green hair. Yeah, that's a good idea. I think I'll do this guy with the big... What do you even call that? Like an upward ponytail or something? He might have green hair. And this guy could have purple. So let's see, we've got orange. Let's have a nice pinky purple. And green. Top knot. So let's start with Mr. Orange. I'll give them all a different hair colour. Because why not? Who needs snooze fest colours? Let's go for a bit of a detail brush with this though, because we are going to be going around the flesh and I want to avoid having to do any touch-ups if possible. There's going to be a few areas, but I want to minimise that. So let's start with Mr. Orange. He's got quite short hair, this one. There's bound to be a few mistakes that need touching up later, but that is acceptable. As long as I get it in roughly all the right spots, so it's only little bits here and there that need to be fixed. And then the moustache, obviously. Can't have moustache grinders without moustaches. Oh, he does have eyebrows as well. So I'm going to have a go at picking them out. That went quite well, actually. If someone's really pale and I'm only going to be using 1 or 2 coats of wash over the flesh, then I'll probably paint their eyes before the wash in white, because that way it'll blend in a little bit around the corner of the eyes. So if you do it before the final layer of wash, it won't darken the white too much, but it'll blend it in a bit. So there's my top tip of the day there. Paint in the eyes before the last layer of wash over the skin. Just going around the edges of the moustache here. It's quite a wild, lengthy beast. Okay, there he is. So who's next? Let's have Mr. Purple. This paint, oddly enough, doesn't have a name on it, which is weird. Into the wet palette with a nice little splodge there. And where did I put the orange? There it is. So here we go. I'm not sure I shook up this paint enough, it's looking a bit watery there. So let's try that again. Have you got any clubs or events going on up there yet? As far as I'm aware, there are some board game places opening up a bit. No gaming events that I'm aware of currently, but hopefully it won't be too long now before it's safe for everyone to start doing that. Yeah, this is a very nice pinkish purpley colour here. It's going to be darkened a bit because I'm going to put a wash over the hair. If you're going to be grinding corpses all day, then surely you'd want to wind down a bit at night and relax and dye your hair funny colours. Wouldn't you? And the beard. Steve says most of the clubs are back now as the local gaming store. Yes, shops tend to be open. I've been to Warhammer World once or twice lately, and the shop's open, but the gaming area and the bar is not. So I'm sure it varies from place to place, depending what would be safe for specific areas, how busy they are, and how big the space is and such. But people are getting impatient, which is dangerous, obviously, because if people are just bored of the fact that they haven't been able to do anything, then they start to take more risks. It's an actual mental condition, isn't it? What do they call it? Something fatigue, like crisis fatigue or something like that. And there's a dangerous situation that's been going on for so long that eventually people just get bored of it. And that's not even including the people that just think it's not real anyway. As nutty as they may be. Okay. There's purple. Up to 7 likes. Very nice. So, not only did a Forest of Rem t-shirt sell today, a couple of stickers as well, with different logos on, from the Redbubble store. And I've started doing a series of promotions on the Redbubble shop, so that once a week I'll update it so a different item is at a reduced price. So at the moment it is the Andy and Rem Show mug, I believe. So that is currently cheaper than usual. We're on to Mr. Green here now. This guy's going to have his face obscured by the cage. But you'll still be able to see him in there. He's got a little beard. Just around the mouth. Okay, there's the green one done for now. Oh, that was Steve buying that stuff, was it? Is that a fact? Because that's some fine merch that was selected there, if that is you. So, hair colours for these ones. So these are the guys that are going to have the darker skin tones. So is that going to affect my choice of hairstyles for them? We're going with crazy colours anyway, so I don't think so. Let's try yellow. What else have we got here? We've already used green. Used green, orange, and pinky purple. So could do with a blue in there as well, couldn't we? Do I have a light blue? Yes. Blue, yellow, and one more crazy colour. What about red? Yeah, let's go for red. I might start off with darker red actually and just highlight with this one. So I'm not sure if pink is necessary though. What do you think? Do we want purpley pink and regular pink together? What do you think of that? Is that going to be better than red? I suppose this one is going to be darkened up a bit with washes. But I could just highlight it with pink and then do a red one as well. So I think I will do that rather than having a pink. I think this one will be highlighted with pink. So it'll be quite bright anyway. So we will have a red one. So these ones don't have a lot of hair on top of their heads. Seems like I've left most of the bald ones here. So beard time. This guy's going to have a big yellow beard. Giving it a good shake. I did freshly apply some water to the wet palette earlier, so this paint should all be good for the next week or two, hopefully. So we can commence with these. It's this one. It's got a bit of hair higher up, but not much. A little bit going on. And I just realised, have I been just forgetting to do the eyebrows, or do these not have any noticeable eyebrows? They don't really have very strong eyebrows, most of them. I might add them in anyway. I think they just look better with eyebrows. Even if they're not particularly visible. So let's add some brows to this one. Some of this will have to be touched up later on after the washes, but I want to get it in all the right areas first. Okay, let's touch up and do a bit of eyebrow work on the other ones that I missed now. So purple. Okay, and the green. So this seems like a decent time slot for this show. I think I might continue with it. Now, who wants a blue beard? This one. Oops, a lot of paint came out there. Bit on the thin side as well. Gonna have to give that a better shake. Probably haven't used it for quite a while. That should be enough. Still a bit on the thin side, but it'll do. I might just need 2 coats. That's the first coat for him. And this one's going to start off with dark red, but it's going to be highlighted with a lighter one at a later date. Okay. Here we go. Onto the beard. Looking very stylish here. I didn't do Mr. Blue's eyebrows. Again. The eyebrows will need some touching up later. They look a little bit silly and thick at the moment for that. Okay, Mr. Blue, let's give you some eyebrows, and then we'll be done with the hair for now. Yeah, this guy's definitely going to need more coats. But we get the idea for now. It's just outrageously thin, this paint. I need to do something to thicken it up a bit. You would think it was an airbrush paint, but it's just model colour, it's not model air. So I'll do something with that. Let's give this brush a nice little soap session. And done with that. Okay, it might be about time to wrap this one up, I think. Made some decent progress on these suckers. Let's have a look. So there you go. So far, that's how they're looking. So all sound a bit Reservoir Dogs at the moment. Yes, potentially, there is a bit of that going on. So what's going to be next on this channel then? So what can you look forward to? You can look forward to obviously the Andy and Rem show on Tuesday, finalising the topic for that very soon. You can look forward to, hopefully next week, the completion of Vermintide, since we just failed, in a very drama-filled encounter in the last episode. So we're still on the last mission, and then we'll be on to Vermintide 2. Another one of these, I'll probably book it in every Friday evening now. Precise time, I'll just have to arbitrarily choose something and hope that I'm available at that time every week. I think it would be good to do it at the same time, same slot, every single week. That's how you build an audience. And anything else coming up? Dave says it was Rem's fault. Yes, it was Rem's fault we didn't finish it because he crashed. And then he ended up missing the last 20 minutes of the episode because he couldn't get back in, and then decided to go to bed because his technology was letting him down. So we need to get that up and running. I'm also looking at upgrading the PC soon, actually, because it's fine for everything that I previously wanted to do with it. It runs all the latest games perfectly fine. It does all my video editing stuff fine. It does all this streaming stuff perfectly fine, except when I stream games. That's the only thing that has a bit of a roadblock in the way, because it just uses too much of the processing power to run the streaming software and the game at the same time. So that's the only thing so far that the PC can't handle. So I'm thinking I'm going to have to upgrade a little bit. I'll have to work out how much that's going to cost me and then decide whether I can actually afford it as well. So we shall see. Since obviously I did move recently and I'm not swimming in cash. But it may be possible, because it would be a good investment as well to upgrade, because it would boost my video output significantly and my capabilities for video editing as well, which is something that I'm offering around to various companies now to see if they want any video work doing for them. I've done some for Bad Squiddo already, as you may have seen. Yes, Dave, the rest of us did fine in Vermintide. It was just the old Remster that let us down, I'm afraid. So keep your eyes peeled for all that juicy upcoming content and excitement. And I'll probably continue with these next week. Whether they'll still be in this exact state by then is up for debate, because I may do a bit of work on them between now and then. Whether there'll be a painting episode before then is another matter up for debate as well. I may just do little bits on them here and there that aren't worthy of an entire episode if I'm just doing 15 minutes of painting while I'm waiting for something else to happen. And Batzuka has joined us in the chat at this late hour as well, just as we're about to disappear. So, don't forget, check out all the links in the description, no matter how spicy they may be, still click on them. Various social media goodness down there, Facebook groups, Twitter, Discord server, the fundraising sources, there's Patreon, there's the Redbubble shop for all your top-notch merch, which I can vouch is pretty top-notch because I'm almost surrounded by it in this house at the moment. I don't have any in this room right now, but there's mugs and cushions galore around here at the moment from the Andy 2D6 Redbubble shop, featuring such magnificent logos as the Andy and Rem Show and the Forest of Rem. Those two specifically were created by Radbat Designs, which you can also find in the description via a Facebook link. If you want to go and like that page to keep up with some spicy, sizzling artwork. And what else? Oh yeah, let's personally thank some of the patrons as well while I'm here, and I've got the page loaded up. So before I do that, let's just have a look at my beautifully edited The Painting Zone logo, which is soon to be replaced by something a bit fancier, maybe. But this is just my slightly mediocre Photoshop abilities. So, thanks to the following patrons who have pledged at the specific level to be thanked at the end of each episode personally. So, thanks obviously to all the patrons, even the $1 peasants, but a special, extra personal, spicy thank you to the following people: Graham, Steve, Kim, Eric, Brad, Barbara, and Guy. Extra special, spicy, juicy, succulent, tender, moist thanks to all of you. And with that, all that remains to be said is, good night out there, whatever you are.